All right, guys, working on a 2013 Brute Force 750. Stator went bad. And so I looked on YouTube, but there wasn't a lot of videos for 2013. I found some older ones that have like the pull start, and the procedure is just a little bit different. A lot of people get nervous when you start talking about stator repairs, so you really got to dig into the engine. But I just want to kind of walk you through just some of the basic stuff that we did in order to be able to access it. Now ours has a radiator relocation, so it may be a little bit different for you to be able to get access in up here to get at the electronic stuff, because normally you have to take all of the plastics, racks, radiator, all of this off in order to get to the plugs, which are up underneath here. But we were able to do it. We disconnected the fender from this part of the well. We took this piece off that had a little pocket. The ignition normally is right here. Remove the ignition, and then took this off. And then we were able to get, I don't know if you can see. So there's the stator plug. That's what the stator plugs into to feed into the Brute Force's electronic system, and going back to the voltage regulator. So once we opened this up, I was able to, it's a little putsy to try and get in there to get the plugs off, because you want to be really careful not to break any of the wires. Don't pay attention to any of this garbage here. The previous owners had wired in some switches for lights and used really cheesy little wire, and so I had to work around all that stuff. So you shouldn't have any of that. But that's where the stator connects. The 2013s, it's a 3-plug stator, and so it does have a pickup coil. But again, I just wanted to show you that you don't have to take everything off to get at it. Essentially, those are your bolts that you have to remove. That's all of them. There's a water pump here. So first thing we do, drain the oil. Don't make the mistake that we did and break the case and then have all the engine oil pour out. So drain the oil first, save yourself a mess. Disconnect your coolant line down here from your water pump and put that into a bucket. You'll be able to collect your coolant. And then there is 4 bolts to remove the water pump. And this here is the water pump. Oh, and you got to remove this footwell on this side to be able to get access into there. So there's some bolts along there, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4, that whole pile of little bolts and stuff that you got to do to take this footwell off. But this is the water pump. This is where that hose connected there. There's 4 bolts on there that need to come off, and then this just lifts off. And then inside you'll have your impeller. Now we have an aftermarket high flow impeller, but these are regular right-hand threads. So all you do is just back it off left and then spin it off, and then this impeller will come off, just exposing the shaft, because you can't remove the panel behind there while that impeller is still attached to the engine. So that impeller has to come off with this water pump. So that's kind of your first step. And then you pull the bolts off for the outer housing. This is what the outer housing looks like here. From this side you can see that's where the water pump is. There's a gasket that goes around here. This is where the shaft drive for the water pump goes through here. Here's your stator, and then your pickup coil is here, which I've already removed. And then this is where it comes out of the engine on the front side. And then here are the plugs. So this is the wire that runs up to where I showed you earlier, where it connects. So we are doing RM stator. OEM stators are all back ordered, and they're like $500. This is a US made, came highly recommended replacement stator. RM stator. Here's the part number. And so yeah, so then basically there's 4 Torx bolts here, 1, 2, 3, 4. The pickup coil is here, and there's a little bracket that sits down in here that holds the wire that comes off of the coil, and then holds that the pickup coil here. I don't even know if I'm saying that right, but I think it's the pickup coil. That's what your impulse coil that gets mounted in there. So we're just about to get ready to remove this, and then this just pops out, and the new one has that same rubber gasket that will go in there. And then it'll just be the reverse for throwing it back on. So like I said, just want to do a quick video just to let you know that it is not an impossible task. It's actually fairly straightforward. Those are all the bolts for that case that would have come on there. That whole thing just pulls straight out this way. And so that's it. Got a little rag in there, otherwise your coolant will kind of keep dripping down in here. And then I use electrical cleaner spray in here because there was some residuals of because you can see on the stators when they fail. Don't mind my mess. I've got about 56 projects going on here. You can see the color, and then black. So this is where the stator has failed and shorted out in here. And so when we did our testing, you're supposed to get like 60 volts. There's 3 white legs that come off of your stator, 1, 2, 3. And if you take your voltage meter and you read from this one to this one, and it comes off as AC, so you have to set it to AC, you should get like 60 volts at like 4,000 RPM. And then you test from this one to this one, you should get 60 volts. And then test this one to the end one, and you should get 60, I believe it's 60 volts. Don't quote me on that, you can look it up. But we were getting like 20 on one and then like 3 volts on the other ones. And then when we did an ohm test, we found that we had an open circuit, which meant that this was shorted to ground. So we knew that the stator was bad. I was hoping it was just a voltage regulator, which on these brute forces is right on the back here, which is super nice. So I did my first tests on here because this top plug is coming from the stator. So this is where you can do your very first initial test. If you're not charging, pull this plug off and then take your voltage meter on AC and test between the first 2, the second 2, and then the first and the last ones. And at like 4,000 RPM, you should have 60 volts AC current coming into here. And then this converts it to 12 volt. Actually, it's like 14 volts output for charging your 12 volt system. So step 1 is check it here. But then we did determine that our voltage regulator is okay because there's still not a guarantee. We'll get the stator changed out, and then we'll also double check to make sure that that's putting out 14 volts for charging. So hopefully this helps you in your diagnostic and repair of 2013 Kawasaki Brute Force 750.